The recorder is on.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Pittman,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Present.
Councilmember Draper,
Here.
Councilmember Hatley, Councilmember Goodson, Councilmember Thompson, and Mayor Reynolds.
Here. Please stand for the flag salute. Salute. Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda today, and it's in regular business. Chief?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. I want to start by saying that our lives change and different things happen to us, and I just want to say it's really good to see all of you, and I'm really glad you're here, and I'm really glad you're in good health. Those things are important. I think sometimes we forget to tell people those things. So, what you have before you today to consider is the issuance of an administrative permit for the emergency housing on Rosewood, which is
Chief,
off of Mono Avenue.
before we go any farther, if you don't mind, Chief lost his mother on Friday, and I'd like to take a moment of silence because I just think that it's important. So. Thank you, and thank you, Chief, for working right through it. You're strong, and we appreciate your strength. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the time. What you're considering this morning is the administrative use permit for the Rosewood subdivision. It's a small unfinished subdivision that is off of Mono Avenue. It was for, the subdivision is going to be utilized for emergency housing for campfire victims, for temporary sheltering. What we are, I think a better term to put this is that it is transitional housing, because the folks or FEMA and Cal OES's goal is to house people and to get them to a permanent situation. This is a temporary housing sheltering situation that's going on up there. The issue that we ran into with this is the city's codes are not set up or designed for temporary housing. They're set up for permanent structures. So when you look at our fee schedules and the different things that we collect, it's for a permanent impact onto our city and onto our infrastructure. This is a temporary one that we're putting in up there. So we have met with Cal OES and FEMA. It was a really good meeting that we had a little over a week ago at the county offices regarding this. It was a lot of good information shared, a lot of explanation as to the temporary nature of this subdivision that they're putting in up there, the purposes for it, and how they go about how they do things and everything that is necessary to go into this to house the folks that need immediate housing. What we have up there is 40 trailers. They're various sizes. There's 3 different sizes. The trailers are all essentially pulled in. They're set up. They are connected to electrical. Each one has a disconnect. Councilperson Smith and myself, we visited the site as late as yesterday. It's been all road-based. It appears that it's probably 99% done, I would assume. They probably have a little bit left to do, a little bit of skirting off a couple of the trailers and things like that, but it looks like it's all done. So some of the last steps that they need to do in order to get people into these houses is, one is get it through the city, get these structures inspected, get everything in line with their administrative permits so that they can actually occupy these, and also work out the logistics with the SCORE treatment plant to handle the sewage that comes out of there. What we're talking about today has nothing to do with SCORE. We are not talking about collecting their fees, figuring out if they're going to charge for a permanent EDU or if they're going to do flowage, whatever they're going to do. The scoreboard has that. It's in their wheelhouse. They're going to handle that part of this equation. What we're talking about today is simply the fees that impact the city and the building permits that are necessary for these. So in the staff report, as I outlined in the staff report, we have a per unit cost. What the per unit cost for each one of the trailers that have been put in the Rosewood subdivision is approximately $3,328. What that $3,328 makes up is it's the cost for the building permit for each one of them. It also includes the mechanical inspecting, the plumbing inspecting, and the electrical inspections that are necessary. It includes all of the state strong and green fees. And then it comes to the fees that we feel that truly impact the city. What will be the real impacts of this subdivision? Those impacts, we feel, from looking at this, are a few of them that are temporary but not permanent. The ones that we believe that truly impact the city are our law enforcement, our fire suppression, and our traffic circulation. All three of those will definitely be impacted and utilized by the individuals that are residing at the Rosewood subdivision. So each one of those also carried a per unit cost that was associated with each one of those. The single charges that we did come in this administrative permit with were the city tap fee, where they've tapped into the main sewer line. They're going to tap one time and have one line that goes to this subdivision and then branches off once they've done the tap. One address fee, because it's one address with space numbers, so we only charged them a single fee for that, and 3 building plan checks, because there's 3 different models, but there's 40 trailers, so there's only going to be 1 plan check for each model. So we're trying to keep that as affordable as possible, because if we were to take this out to the full fee structure that the city normally charges, we would have a economically unfeasible temporary housing shelter. I mean, it becomes so expensive. We would be talking it's somewhere in the $500,000 to $700,000 range by the time they got done with their SCORE fees and city fees and everything else for temporary structures that are going to be pulled out within 18 months. So in order to do this, we had to kind of sort of, as we're going, create a temporary fee structure for temporary housing, because it just doesn't exist in our code. Now, our code does allow for temporary housing. There's 2 specific sections that were cited that were given to you in your staff report. 17.08.17 allows for, or 170, allows for recreational vehicles, mobile homes, and manufacturing housing units to be used as temporary housing shelter due to the campfire crisis. 17.16.060 allows for the temporary use of buildings, but requires that they obtain the necessary permits. So for this to happen, what we need from the council, if the council chooses to do this, we need the direction and the authorization to issue this permit based upon these 2 sections. One is that these are mobile living units, which are mobile homes essentially, for better understanding of what they are. And we also need to have the authorization to issue the necessary use permit, because this is not anything that we normally do. This is outside of the norm for us. So this is a temporary thing. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Now, if there was another situation that arose and something like this were to occur, we would have to reassess that and see what those are. The other things that we are asking for in this administrative use permit is that we are going to work with Cal OES and FEMA, which we've talked with them as late as last, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember which day. We talked with them regarding this and informed them of the need of a letter that's saying they're going to be responsible for that sewer line from the tap all the way to the trailers, and anything that happens as a result of their sewer line is their responsibility. Same thing would be with any electrical. I mean, there is some undergrounding that was done that was not inspected. It's going to have to be their responsibility because we did not have the opportunity to see that. I don't believe it was done intentionally, meant to get around anything. It was just, you know, in the getting this project done, the haste of getting it done, and the miscommunications that, you know, may or may not have occurred. It just didn't happen. So they are, they said they are willing to provide us some sort of a letter saying that they will be responsible for these things. We are not going to be responsible for them. If in such time there is an issue and they do ask for our help and go out there, they are under of the understanding, and we will make sure that they're clear of this, that they will pay us on a time and material basis for any dollars expended from the city for, you know, and I'm just guessing, you know, if the main line were to get plugged and they have our sewer department go out and they run something up there to unplug it, we would just charge them the time and material for that if they ask us to do that. If they don't, then we don't touch that line, essentially. This also puts a cap on this of 18 months. After 18 months, these trailers must come out. If they do not come out of this subdivision, and the applicant and the city are both willing and agreeable to extend it, then they have to come in, ask for that, and then if they choose to do that, and, you know, depending on the length and the duration of how long the trailers will be there, a new fee will be due. If they choose to go another 18 months, it will be the full fees again for another 18 months, with the exception of the building fees. So, but we'll figure that out when we get 18 months down the road. They may be there that long, they may not. It just depends on what the need are and how quickly they can get folks into permanent housing. There are representatives from Cal OES here and FEMA. There's a representative from SCORE, and I believe there's one community member that wishes to speak on this. So do you have any additional questions that I can answer for you on this project?
Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
I'm just curious, in addition to this 40-unit parcel here, how many of these do we have in Oroville now? How many other trailers besides these 40?
I'm only aware of the 40 that are going in on Rosewood. I know that there are some up at, I believe it's, I don't know if it's Loafer Creek or if it's the Bidwell Marine. I believe there's a good number of them up there, and there may be some individual ones in trailer parks in different locations throughout the city, but this is the only one that I'm aware of. This may be the only one that actually I'm aware of in Butte County that's this close to actually being opened up. But I think our FEMA rep can probably answer that for us
Okay, thank
a lot
you.
more accurately.
There's at least one project in the unincorporated area close to Oroville, as I recall, but not in the city.
Okay.
Good morning, Jeremy Swartz with FEMA. I'm the logistics section chief for the agency working this disaster. I'm also co-lead for the housing task force responsible for getting our survivors
Can you
housed.
speak up? Yeah,
I apologize about that. So yeah, this would be the first group site that would be coming online in the Butte County area. The 40 trailers that will be there will be the first ones that we'll have ready to go as soon as we can get the permits and the inspections done, and we should be able to get folks housed out there. Bidwell Canyon, we have some travel trailers up there, a little over 70 that are up there. And then there's a few commercial parks, which I'm not sure if they're in the city limits or not, here at Oroville, that have mobile homes that people are living in right now. The other site would be the Orchard Crest site, which is outside of the city limits, that we're working on. We just got the 100% site design on that done yesterday, but we haven't gotten any further in that project yet. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
How many trailers will that one hold?
The one at Orchard Crest, somewhere between 130 and 136.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, did you mention it's outside of the city limits? I
Councilmember
believe
Smith's in the queue. I'm sorry. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I want to appreciate the staff for just the response and getting this all together. It's a heavy lift, and as you've already pointed out, it's outside of kind of typically what, how we would handle something like this. And also, I'm just grateful that we're able to help with the, what's happened with the folks in Paradise. So just want to, again, express my appreciation for all the extra work that staff has had to deal with. The question I have is with the post setup here. So after 18, let's say, just assume 18 months comes and the folks are able to relocate, then the infrastructure that's been put in place, the temporary infrastructure, what's the policy or plan to restore back that property to its original intended use?
The plan would be, from the city's perspective, is this going to be a stick-built subdivision when this is done, and the infrastructure that's in the ground now, while some of it may be usable, that's going to have an issue between the landowner and FEMA whether it's removed or remains. If it remains, then it's going to have to meet all current standards for the city in order for the city to accept it, or it may have to come out and different infrastructure be placed to replace it.
Right.
It certainly won't be allowed to, as it exists right now, to remain.
And the only reason why I bring that up was my thought was because we didn't have our folks didn't have an opportunity to look at that. So, and you have all that infrastructure, wire and pipe and lots of stuff in the ground. So I didn't know if there was a policy or procedure that then that's removed in a certain way and restored back.
Probably what we would do in a situation like that, if the landowner came in and said, hey, we want to utilize, we've been worked out a deal with FEMA where we have purchased that, or however that works with FEMA, we would probably make them do a series of test locations to see what is exactly there and how it was done so before we were able to accept it. Because the sewer collection system, you know, even though it may sound like a crude and harsh thing, is actually a very sensitive thing, and it must be kept tight, it must be done appropriately, and we cannot have anything affecting that.
Great, thanks.
Councilmember Hatley.
Thank you. Is there going to be like a management type of thing on site for these trailers? I mean, for lack of a better term, sort of like a camp host type of thing. So if an issue comes up, are they going to be calling us going, hey, you know, this happened, or who do they, I mean, how does that work?
My understanding is they're going to have folks on site on either a daily or a regular basis, because the idea isn't to have people in here long term. It's to get them here, to transition them to something else. My understanding is people have stayed as short as 2 weeks, as long as 18 months. So my understanding is, and Jeremy, you can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, there will be someone on site, I believe on a daily basis, working with the folks that are there transitioning to other housing.
Yeah, so this site is relatively close to our current office that we have here in Oroville out by the airport. So we decided or chose, since this site was only a 40-unit site, not to put an office there, to make sure we maximize the space to get as many MHUs there as we could. So there's no specific office on site for this particular project. However, our staff members, you know, as he mentioned, will be checking in with the survivors on a fairly regular basis, you know, if not daily, you know, every several days, just to find out what their status is and the long-term housing solution plan for them. What's their long-term plan, and you know, where they're going to go next. You know, as obviously ours is a short-term solution for them, just to get them you know, someplace to live until they can find that long-term place. So,
Well, the reason I ask is because if I have a sewer problem, I'm going to call the city because I live in the city, and that's who I'm going to call, and that's why I'm asking, who will they be calling
yeah,
the
so
city
that's
and saying, hey, we've got this problem, and then we have to try to track somebody down from.
Yeah, no, they won't be calling the city. We have a 24-hour maintenance hotline that the folks will be calling if there's an issue with the unit that they're living in, if there's an issue with the sewer, electric, the water, anything, any type of issues of that nature. You know, the 24-hour maintenance line, not only for this park, but for every park that we're going to build, and even the parks that are commercial parks out there where we, you know, leased and put a trailer or a travel trailer in. Those folks can call 24/7, 365 days a year if they're living there to report an issue, and we'll have somebody out there really quickly to take care of it. So they won't be calling the city.
Okay, and then the upkeep on these, because if you have people moving in and out and.
Yep, we take care of all that. It's all FEMA's responsibility for the unit itself. Once a survivor moves out, we'll clean and make the unit ready to put another survivor in there potentially, if the unit's capable of being able to house another survivor. And if it's not, we'll take that unit out and put another one there that somebody could then live in. So, you know, you might see a unit coming out and going in, and that's only because the unit was deemed that we couldn't make it ready for another occupant.
Okay, well, that's what I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
I just want to piggyback off of something that Councilwoman Draper had asked, and I don't know if just you exclusively, Jeremy, has the information, or maybe we can collaborate efforts here. Now, it's my understanding, and what I'm trying to get at is how the impact of the campfire has impacted surrounding cities, but specifically Oroville, for workers or for families that have been relocated because of the campfire. You had, the first number you gave us was 40. This project is specifically for 40 units. Then you mentioned 70. You also mentioned 136. And I don't believe that those figures incorporate the housing that's been provided on Industrial Park and the corporation yard. So between the two of you, can you give me a approximate number of how many temporary families this is going to?
I cannot tell you how many people are in the families. I can tell you how many mobile living units that have been placed. The one in the industrial park, we'll just start there.
All right.
That is for folks that are doing cleanup in the Paradise area. I believe there's going to be 3,000 workers associated with that project. I don't know how many or how they're, this is not a FEMA project, this is a private entity that's doing this.
Right, and I'm aware of that, but it's, since we're talking about it, I just figured
Sure.
I
No.
could get some information from
yeah.
Jeremy, some from you.
Right. No, I think it's a good idea so that everybody kind of has an overall picture of what all is going on, and that is certainly a big component of it. So at our industrial park, not ours, in the county, at the Highway 70 Industrial Park, there's going to be 3,000 workers that are residing out there.
And Bill, I want to indicate that's the number they provided us. We haven't gone out and verified how many people. They sent out a press release saying 3,000.
Correct.
We don't know if that's true or not.
Right.
That's what they gave us.
And they are going to be daily
corporation.
workers there. Our corporation yard is going to have up to, I believe it's going to be 50 units plus 10 RV spaces.
All right.
The 10 RV spaces are intended to be used for workers that are coming into the Oroville area to, where this idea came from was for Sierra Heights. They were going to be construction workers that are going to be working on that senior housing project, and they were having a difficult time finding RV spots because of the impact of the campfire. So we're going to have up to 60 trailers down there. That's done by the North Valley Community Foundation. That is not a FEMA project or Cal OES project.
And how many did you say were at the Bidwell and the other?
Yeah, so at Bidwell, we have, I believe it's 73 travel trailers up there that folks are living in right now. So with the 73 at Bidwell, the 40 at Rosewood, we have a commercial park, but I think it's outside the city limits, that only has 8 survivors living in it. And then 136 or so at the Orchard Crest property, which again is outside the city limits. I understand your concerns about impacts. You know, the other cities that we're working with have had the same type of concerns as well. We're putting in a housing project at Chico for a group site up there, and obviously you may or may not know about the large group site we're working on in the city of Gridley. So everybody is certainly we understand the impacts that this is bringing to the communities that we're working with. However, you know, we still, you know, with the lack of options, we have to work with what we have.
Right, we do. Thank you. So my figure, just an approximation, is 3,379. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Pittman.
Yeah, I want to compliment staff and Cal OES and FEMA and everybody else because we're in a different domain. And I appreciate the fact that we have this administrative permit and the fact that we can accommodate this. I think that's a good thing. I also want to compliment your security staff. Being the inquisitive old fire chief that I am, I attempted to go in yesterday and they could properly stop me and reverse me around, so I didn't get to go in there. So your security staff is working well. It's not often I get kicked off a project, but that's okay. That's cool. I see this as a reasonable attempt to try to deal with it, and both from our side because we're protecting our citizens and our ratepayers and so on and so forth. So I appreciate staff and everyone come together, put this together for us to look at. So thank you all.
Thank you. Are there any public comments, Madam Clerk?
I do have one public speaker, Dave Quintel.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, Dave Quintel. First of all, I have to thank everybody for being here today. We are in a truly unprecedented event here, and I get some of the things. There's some things I'm still a little confused on. One of them is this meeting was called in 23 and a half hours, which I kind of question the validity of that. As it was not noticed, probably in an efficient time manner. The other option, or the other thing that Mr. Legrone brought up was a couple of things. Was the impact on fire, police, sewer, water. It also impacts surrounding property owners as to the desirability of their property now. And let me back up. Let me regress a little bit here. I'm actually a realtor here in town. I'm actually a former fire department member, and also the president of the Oroville Association of Realtors, but I'm speaking on my behalf only. It does affect the surrounding properties. I actually have a property that adjoins this property, and 3 months ago I saw them out there surveying. Of course, you ask what's going on, and of course they say, we don't know, we're just surveying. Then they're moving ground out there. What's going on? Oh, we're just putting in some stuff. So you had grading permits that were not pulled. Well, there was actually a permit finally pulled, and we don't have a building official, I understand now, which none of this process went through the city at all. And also, as Mr. Legrone alluded to, this meeting was only, OES and Cal OSHA only agreed to meet with the city apparently a week ago.
Time.
I have lots more. Unfortunately, you don't get to hear it. I just thought it was kind of ironic that the only way the government can get around this process is to disregard all the government processes.
Are there any more speakers?
That was the last public speaker, Mr. Mayor.
So we're looking for a motion.
I recommend that that we authorize the staff to issue an administrative permit for the Rosewood subdivision temporary housing using the fee collection methodology above.
I'll second that.
Mr. Mayor, may I, before the vote, may I address one item that was raised by the speaker regarding the 23 and a half hour notice. That is technically incorrect. It was posted on the city website 24 hours before the meeting. I received an email before and with the agenda, with the materials, and I verified it was there before 8:30 yesterday morning. I don't control when the email goes out as far as notifying the public generally. Anyone that signs up for the city's email service can receive notices. We will push them to individual citizens regardless of where they live if they sign up for the email service. That appears to have gone out after the fact, but that's not the controlling feature of Brown Act compliance. The controlling feature of Brown Act compliance is when was it posted on the city website? When was it posted on the city office building as a special meeting? It was posted within 24 hours, and we have complied with the Brown Act. I do appreciate the comment that perhaps the individual speaker did not receive his notice 24 hours before, but that's not the standard. The standard is the city must post it at the city website in the city building 24 hours before the meeting.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
I'd like to make a couple other comments. Obviously, it's an emergency situation. We have been working almost daily with FEMA and Cal OES, and they've been great partners in this. There have been some bumps along the way, I'll admit that, but this was reached in agreement. There are, as was indicated by a number of you, some pretty severe impacts on the city. In fact, we did traffic counts, and our traffic is up 20 to 30%. And certainly on certain roads, you'll notice that, and then with the debris trucks, you'll notice even a greater impact. We continue to work with OES, FEMA, but more importantly with our legislators, Assemblyman Gallagher, Congressman Lamalfa, and State Senator Nielsen, held a meeting last Friday which talked about this specific thing and impacts on Paradise, Chico, and Oroville, and we continue to work on that and continue to try and get the funds to accommodate the growth we need to accommodate. It's been quite a process. And then on the second note, it was mentioned here, and I want to clarify that our building official Gary Lehman, has in fact rescinded his resignation. He is with the city. He would like to continue his role as the building official. As was mentioned previously, we are in conversation with a firm to provide additional building inspection, code enforcement, and planning services. And as suggested, we provided to you at the DS qualifications of that firm, and certainly feel free to check them out. They are working locally in both, I know Glenn County, I know City of Chico. We think they're highly qualified. We will bring that back to you at your May 7th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. At this time, our meeting's adjourned.
Non-agenda items.
You too.